Start. Welcome, everybody. So today we're talking about using documentary photography to elevate your portfolio, whether you're a wedding or a family photographer. Do you want to drop into the chat if you do one of those or both? I'm curious. I do both. Go ahead if you feel like sharing that. Zanda's family, Michael does both. Docu-family is Anya. Donita is family as well. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you. Yvonne, you've got your first wedding coming up. That's exciting. That is super exciting. Where is share screen? Okay. Okay, so you'll have to tell me if you can see this. All right, can everybody see that? Give me a thumbs up if that's good. Okay, right on. Okay, so using your unique voice to create a high-end documentary portfolio. And so today I'm going to, the examples that I use are going to be leaning more towards weddings. And the only reason for that is because that's mostly what I have loaded in Canva. And I'm going to start this by saying my view of wedding photography is that it's just family photography. People are just wearing fancy clothes. So, but these images will be mostly wedding photography, and it's because it's just what I've had available to me. So a little bit about me. I am an international multi-award winning documentary and family photography coach and podcaster. My podcast is called the Tilt and Shift Photography Podcast. And we talk about the major tilts and shifts and perspectives that artists go through in order to reach the success as they define it. But I shoot everything in the moment with virtually no direction whatsoever. And I believe it is exactly why I make six figures and more a year. And I live in a really small city of 10,000 people in rural Canada. And the reason I'm sharing that is because for a very long time, I had a great deal of limiting beliefs that there was no way that anybody would pay me what I'm currently making to do documentary photography in this limited market. So I want to open up our brains a little bit that whatever you want is entirely possible. And I come from the place where I never used to think that. So today we're going to talk how I managed to do that. And the long and short of it is that I make meaningful, impactful images of stories that my clients seek to experience themselves. So I've really been intentional about only sharing the things that I want to experience with other people, and with them seeing it, they also want to experience that with me. So full disclosure, at the end of this presentation, I'm going to share the details of my group mentorship that I have starting right away. I'm super excited about it. It's called Storyteller School, and it's a 3-month program that starts in a couple of weeks that's going to really deeply dive into what we go over generally today. So I would like you to share in the chat if you're just getting started. Put the number 1 if you're just getting started in documentary photography. 2, if you've been working on it for a while and are looking for more help. Or 3, you're already pro and you're just looking around because you're curious to learn as much as you can. So drop some of your answers in there. I'm just curious about where people are at. Awesome. Annie's been doing it for a bit. Zan, Michael, just getting into it. Right on. Okay. Thank you for being here. And I am so excited to help you. Okay. So let us start. Yvonne's not fully doc yet. Okay. So I've been shooting fully doc since 2017. If you're curious. And then the 5 or 6 years before that, I just really floundered around. I didn't know what I wanted. So I'm going to start by describing the problem that I see in the wedding industry and family industry. So wedding and family photographers, we post a ton of portraits. And what that means is that even if you think you're different, and I assure you, you are different, you are absolutely different, your work tends to look like everyone else's because we're all posting portraits. And part of the reason that we're doing, even if they're candid portraits, even if they're fairly natural feeling, they're still portraits. They tend to focus on the couple, they tend to focus on the family unit in a certain amount of space. And there's only so many ways that we can do that and still be original. So the solution is, and if you leave with nothing else other than this today, this is the solution. The solution is to share more candid images. So candid images are much more reflective of genuine personalities and people. And we as humans are innately drawn to true and honest experiences. Candid is always different. You can never really repeat candid because the people in it are experiencing different things to different levels. They're in different places. They have different gestures. Candid is always going to be a little bit different than something that we pose and something that we are influenced by because we've seen it somewhere else. So being different is the best way to be seen. If you're struggling to be seen in your industry, being different is the best way to get there. So let's ramp this up a little bit. There's candid, and then there's really, really good candid photos. So candid photos separate you from the crowded photography market for two reasons. Candid photos, really good ones, are not easy to make interesting, right? So if you're really good at them, you're golden. Candid photos, like if this image was cut off right here, it would be good. But it's even better because we can see 5 people who all have similar expressions and reactions to this person, right? It's multiplied. It's a little bit harder to make an image like this than it is to just focus on one person looking at the bride. Also, really good candid photos make the viewer feel what it's like to be in the scene, and people like to feel stuff. When people come to your website, they want to feel something. So what you'll find start to happen if you start sharing more candid images, people will start to say your work is different. And that's amazing because it means that you will stand out, right? Candid is different. If you share more candid, you're going to stand out. It also means that they felt something when they saw your work, and people make decisions based on feeling, right? We buy things, we want things because they make us feel something. People make purchases based on feeling. Okay, but why are we talking about candid photos when I said I'm a documentary photographer? Does anybody want to hazard a guess? You can unmute if you want, or you can drop it in the chat. Why do you think I'm talking about candid photos when I said I'd be talking about documentary? Any ideas? I think Yvonne is typing. I'm going to let you finish. Yvonne said, what's the difference? I'm clueless. Okay, so exactly. We're going to talk about what the difference is, right? Everybody's talking candid. Today, we're actually going to define what the difference is and how that affects your work. Excellent, excellent. What's it called when you can see into the future? ESP? Okay, so candid photography is a genre or a style that spontaneously captures organic, genuine, unposed moments of a subject. We also see people talk about candid a lot when they're doing like lifestyle stuff. So I'm thinking about families walking through a field, all kind of smiling at each other. It's a candid moment because that exact smile wasn't directed, right? So we've kind of stretched the meaning of candid a little bit to include things that weren't directly, things that are kind of indirectly posed by photographers. And we all definitely make candid photos, whether we're shooting a wedding or we're shooting a family. We are shooting candid stuff. We're all kind of drawn to it, and we're all, I think we should all be pleased with ourselves when we make a sweet photo of our clients interacting with their loved ones. Like I think that's something that we're just inherently drawn to. Whereas documentary is a style of photography that provides like a detailed and accurate story about the people and events. So it's usually what we would call photojournalism, and I think in the UK you guys call it reportage. It comes with more rules about composition, particularly around layering, the rule of thirds, camera awareness, and to a certain extent, we all do a bit of photojournalism, right? We're all interested in our clients' stories. I would hazard a guess that we don't go into a shoot thinking about the story, however. The difference is the extent to which we tell that story, the extent to which we are curious about all the components that come together for these families. So let's take a look at these images as an example. Yes, this is a candid moment. And it tells the story of a mom, this lady here on the left, who watched her 3 daughters grow up together, how much she's loved watching their relationship blossom, and especially how much they all love this middle child, the one literally in the middle here on her wedding day. So there's a story in this image. It's candid, but it also contains a story. And we're going to get to how to make stories in a single frame coming up. So are all candid images documentary? No, they absolutely are not. Candid just means it wasn't posed. But documentary images are almost always candid. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up if you agree. A thumbs down if you don't. And you're allowed to disagree, of course. Remember, I just said this was my opinion. So another element to consider is, and this is the one that I really dig into as a wedding and family photographer, the element that really defines documentary is your frame of mind while you're photographing the day or their session. So are you shooting to present a cohesive story? Is there a clear middle, beginning, and end? Are you sewing those moments together into a narrative? Or were you just there for the highlights? Were you just there for the ceremony and the photos after? Are you just there with the family for a half-hour session? Candid just happens. Documentary is story. There's a story in that image or a sequence of images. Great news, however, both styles in the last couple of years, it's been really cool to see how popular candid, documentary, photojournalism, what else are people calling it? Those are kind of the 3 main genres. People say they're documentary photographers or photojournalists, or they include candid. I have a candid style. They've all become super popular, and that's awesome because regardless of what you end up calling yourself after this, or if we work together in the future, people are going to love it, right? People love genuine, spontaneous representations of feelings. We are going to talk specifically about documentary and why documentary will not only make you a better photographer, but also more satisfied with your work and bring in more money. That is the crux. That is my thesis. I believe that documentary photography can bring in more money for you. So I started my career in journalism. I started as a writer, and I moved into photojournalism when I was asked to photograph the stories that I was writing. So I've chosen to niche solely into documentary, wedding, and family photography because I am wholly unsatisfied with making portraits. I don't like telling people what to do, and above all else, I am utterly fascinated by human beings and how they interact, and how you can see the personalities in like the way that they blink their eyes. Humans, absolutely, I'm obsessed. And I find it extremely satisfying to watch, listen, and feel for shifts in their energy and be able to respond to that with a composition that really beautifully reflects what they're experiencing together. Documentary, it really allows people to stay in the moment and not have me like fussing around with what I need, because they've hired me because they have a need. It's not what I need as a photographer, it's what they need. I'm there to respond to them, and they need me to remember this day for them. So, and they want me to do that creatively and honestly. This is what my clients have come to expect from me. And so in order to do that, in order to use documentary photography, in order to do this for my clients and make more money as a photographer myself, I had to find my voice. There's been a lot of talk about voice. I don't know if anybody is on social media. Maybe you are. I expect you are. We all are. There's been a lot of talk about finding your voice, about sharing your perspective, about finding out who you are. And I think that's really cool, actually, because in the same way that we're talking about candid and documentary photography on social media and in other places, we're also talking about finding our voice. Both of these topics have gotten really popular in the last couple of years. And I think this is happening because they're very closely related. Because we can't really tell stories. We can't be honest and in the moment with people unless we know what our voice is and what we want to say or what we're trying to help other people say. And in doing so, it comes at a time when a lot of us are really getting lost in the masses, right? There are millions, like tens and tens of thousands of photographers out there. If we don't start using our voice to say what we need to say, our clients are absolutely unable to see how you are different from someone else. The thing that makes you different from the next photographer is your voice. And if you don't have your voice, if that's not being represented in your work, your clients have no choice but to compare you to someone else using the only thing that is the common denominator, which is price. So if you don't have a clear voice, if your work is beautiful but kind of similar to someone else's, the only thing that they're going to be able to make their decision based on is the price, right? There's a couple of other things, but for most people, it will come down to that. They won't be able to see the value in the price difference if your work is quite similar. So if we find our voice, we will naturally photograph that which holds great meaning for us. When we find our voice, things get much more satisfying in this creative work that we're doing. But there's always a but. How do we find our voice, right? Rick Rubin just released a book. It's called The Creative Act. And it's an awesome book, but he said one thing in there that I was like, I don't know. He said the voice is just there and that we don't have to find it. I'm paraphrasing, but he said we don't have to find our voice. And I think that's true. Like, our voice is there and we can undoubtedly trust that we each have a voice, but for most of us, especially in our industries of wedding and family, most of us, our voice is buried by social conventions and expectations, right? Or things that we think our clients expect. There are so many expectations, especially so at a wedding, right? So how do we find our voice when we work in an industry that wants us to do things in a certain way? We have to define our values. Your voice is in your values. I'm going to drop a list of core values and a link to a fun little exercise that you can do on your own later. I'm just going to copy this and put it in there. So if you want to pop that open in a different window, hopefully that works. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and like, if you've never done a core value exercise, it's really fun. And there's a link to another little 10-minute exercise that you can do to figure out what those are for yourself. So find out your personal core values. And then I want you to look at your work, like take your top 50 favorite photos and decide, like, try to see if those values that you've identified are represented in the work that you make. And be a bit brutal with yourself. Like, let's say that one of your values is honesty, and the photos that you bring up is a family who's really quite they're looking like they're quite posed. Is that my mail? Then is that an honest image? Or if one of your values is adventure and all of your images are like kind of low in energy and they're like really soft and dreamy, like, is that adventure? So I'll use myself as an example. So my core values are joy, connection, and adventure. And if you look at this photo in particular, you can see that I have all three of them in here, right? They're experiencing joy, obviously, by the looks on their faces. They're connected because they're having this experience, and they are having an adventure because it's a literal blizzard on their wedding day, right? So all three values of mine are represented in this image. And wouldn't you know, whenever I post this photo, it draws in people who want to feel this. I always get people who are like skiers and bikers. They reach out to me, they're like, hey, we love this photo. Would you share a wedding? How do we make this happen? So when you share photos, when you share work that really describes your values, it's going to draw in people who want to experience the same thing. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, is everyone going to, after this, is everyone going to go out and do the little core exercise or core value exercises? Little exercise I give you? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we've talked about how you find your voice. Now we're going to how to use that voice in telling stories with more meaning. And meaning is going to be what is sparked by what your values are, what is meaningful to you in particular, okay? So how do we tell stories with more meaning? I already posted a photo with hugs. This is another photo with hugs. I truly love making images of people hugging. Now remember, we have to hone our documentary skills using our voice. And if you recall, my values were joy, connection, and adventure. Knowing that, does it make sense that I share lots of photos of people hugging? What do we experience when we hug people? Joy and connection, right? And if you get spun around, there's probably some adventure in there. So you can see how I'm curating my work based on what I want my people to experience, because I like experiencing that. So if those are my values, how do you make a good storytelling photo comprising what those values are? Okay, so now we're going to talk a little technical stuff, and this is where I like to get really geeky. Okay, so composition. Composition is how you tell a good story. How you tell it. I don't even want to use the word good, because there is no good or bad or right or wrong in art. There is more effective storytelling and less effective, right? So I tell my students to answer 3 questions every time they compose an image. So the first question is, what story am I trying to tell? The next question is, what is taking away from that story? And the third question is, what is amplifying the story? I'm using this photo as an example. The bride's name is Ebony. So Ebony, her mom, her bridesmaids, and her niece were all with her getting ready on one of the biggest days of her life. And she's spending that morning with the most important people in her life. Okay, that is the story. What took away from that story was when any one of these 4 people were maybe looking out of the frame, if they weren't necessarily engaging with Ebony or with each other, or if mom was too hidden behind Ebony, or if one of their arms was kind of out of the frame, like it's her hand here. All of those things would take away from the story. What amplified the story is when everyone was kind of focused in on the same thing, and none of the people were intersecting too terribly. So it's clean, and we've all got like, everything is culminating into the center of the story, which is Ebony getting ready on her wedding day, right? I positioned myself where I would be most likely to be able to see everyone's faces. And so that I could make these layers with everyone. And then I was just really patient. This was going on for a few minutes, and I just shot the crap out of it. You have to be willing to choose a perspective and stay there until the stars align. And they will, I promise you they will. They're all looking at Ebony, they're all showing an emotion, they're all part of the story. The other awesome thing is that there's triangles, and triangles are a huge part of composition as well. It's another little geeky bit. Does that make sense? Okay. So here's another example, and I really like this one because it's a little bit unusual. It's not what we normally see at weddings because it has nothing to do with the couple, right? Again, I want my couples to experience joy, adventure, connection. They can envision their guests doing stuff like this at their wedding. This describes their guests. It describes the PG games that all the kids got to witness. And if you think back to when you were a kid, maybe you can remember being at weddings when you were kids and adults were doing super weird things, right? I have some very distinct memories of being at weddings and thinking adults were just weird. I'd never seen them do the things that they were doing. And this really struck me as an example of that. So again, if we look at the composition, we've got two layers. We've got the adults, we've got the kids. And so I wanted to be in a spot where I could see both and also like not quite understand what was happening here, because I like it when things kind of left a little bit unsaid. And I just waited until, because I had seen that he had, you can see he has this tie around his waist. I knew he was going to eventually have to use his teeth to take the tie off. We know what that suggests. And I wanted to be in a place where I could see the kid's reaction to what was happening. And then I made the photo. So you have to be able to kind of anticipate what's going on and position yourself where you can be able to tell multiple layers of the same story. And if we're only posting portraits, those are one-dimensional, right? They're probably beautiful and they're awesome interactions between the couples or between the mom and her kids, dad and the kids, whoever. But if you're only posting one dimension of a family's experience, it's just one dimension, right? It's more layers make it more interesting and tell more of the story. Speaking of one layer, that's exactly what we have here. So this is a really simple composition. And I think the look on the niece's face says everything, right? This is a really good storytelling image because kids were a big part of their day. And we can see here that they have a really cute relationship. And there's something that I actually haven't mentioned yet, and it's the universality of experience. So a good story is a good story because we can identify with it, right? We may have had a similar experience, or we've seen people or kids do this before, and we can all be like, yeah, I've seen this before. Like, this is something funny that tends to happen. So if we look for stories where we can see ourselves in the subjects, we're going to be able to attract people who can see that too. Here, she snuck in on him and he had his shirt off, and lots of kids will make this expression when they're joking about seeing people naked, right? So this is just her being like, boop, and he had a really cute reaction to her as well. So again, the story of their relationship, and it's also a universal story in terms of kids being curious about what adults are doing. I'll just share a few more just for fun. I just threw these in just before we came in. So the reason, I mean, there's many layers happening here, right? I really love to stay until the very end of the wedding where things kind of devolve into chaos. That is actually my niche. In terms of weddings, I always stay as long as they will let me. And here, like, the bride's breast was falling out of the dress. Her sister was looking after her the whole night. All the guys had ripped their shirts off. You can see that things had just gotten super chaotic. Normally I wouldn't love this because he is intersected by another body, but I think it's also kind of great because it looks like he has 3 arms, because it's just like, it's the chaos of the party, right? Here there's 2 layers. We've got these bride and groom having a beautiful walk down the beach, and a naked guy comes walking out of the lake. Here, this is a pretty conventional image. We all shoot the hug or the kiss at the end of the ceremony. I prefer to be where the officiant is, because then I can see the guests that are reacting to the couple, rather than it just being the one dimension of them having their first kiss. If you come and look at it from the other direction, you're actually going to be able to tell multiple stories of how everybody feels about what's happening with these two. Here's another end of the night photo. This tells a lot of story. Her feet are a mess. The dress is a mess. They're exhausted. They passed out on the bed. We know, we can tell what happened at their wedding. Another one here, I'm staying till the end. She's brushing her teeth. This is the bride. She's disheveled and she can't believe she's married. She's looking at her ring.
Mm.
A couple more. Story here. I love looking at images that will repeat themselves throughout the couple's lives, and same thing with families. Feeding each other is something that we all do for the people we care about. There's so much ceremony and beauty and emotion and meaning in being able to feed each other. And when I walked past the room, I was actually just going to the bathroom, and she was feeding him, and she's taking her shoes off because her feet are sore from the wedding. He's kind of, you can see he's a bit kind of exhausted here. She's got some food in her mouth. She's feeding him. I just thought this was such a beautiful, tender moment. And I could see them doing this when they're 80. You know, it's that universal, not only universal between what's happening with the people, but it's the universal experience through their whole lives, and what we can all imagine our lives to be with this person that we're spending the rest of our life with. Okay, so let's pull this all together into how we use the documentary photography to actually elevate our portfolio. So by including value-driven storytelling, universally experienced documentary photos, your viewer, like the one who is hoping to hire a wedding or family photographer, can truly vibe with the experience that you are representing through your eyes for the couples that you've worked with. So I always think about, I'm shooting something for my future clients, right? My clients have already hired me because they want me to make the work for them, but I'm also shooting because I want other people to see why it was that they hired me, right? And that's why my values are so important and so critical that I include those in each and every image that I show. Do I make images that don't have that? Yes, but I don't put them in my portfolio. I do not put in anything that doesn't tick all of those boxes. And that's what I want you to walk away from here with, is knowing that you do not have to show the expected images. You don't. Everyone else is showing those. What's going to make you different is when you don't show them. So if what you show is based on your values, you're going to attract the clients who share those values. And that is where the soul value, like SOUL, the soul value and the monetary values lie. People are willing to pay for what they value. Okay, now if there's a voice in your head that's saying they can't afford that, or no one will ever pay me that, I'm going to share my story with you again. Okay, so for years I was making between $3,000 and $4,000 a wedding, and between $300 and $400 for family clients. I was deep in the hustle and shooting everything I could for clients who didn't get me, and I didn't even really get what I was doing. I knew what I didn't want. I sort of knew what I wanted, but I still drew in people who expected me to tell them what to do. And I didn't want to tell them what to do. I really wanted them to just do their thing and let me shoot that. Okay. And then I got really clear on my values, what I wanted to experience in my life. And I started questioning, what if I only showed that? What if I tried to draw people in by showing what I wanted to experience? So it evolved into the brand that I'm now known for. And it's one that pays me 5 figures for weddings and 4 figures for families. I did not believe that it would ever be possible that I could do that, because my clients are teachers and tradesmen. There's some doctors, there's some engineers, there's hardware store clerks, there's some lawyers. I mentioned their occupations because I want to help you understand that if you share your value and show that your work, that you are showing your value through your work with quality storytelling that interests those searching clients, people will figure out how to bring you into their lives. I promise. I honestly did not believe this until I got too frustrated with where I was to keep doing it. And so I just gave it a shot. I thought, forget it. I'm just going to raise my prices. I'm just going to be solely me. here we are. So what I would like to do, I would like to influence wedding and family photography by helping photographers to use their inherent gift, to follow their instinctive hearts, and to share their honest perspectives so that clients can find truly meaningful reflections of the people in their lives that they love most. And so it's time, as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm going to share why my 12-week group mentorship, it's called Storyteller School, is exactly what you need to become a sought-after documentary photographer that charges premium pricing. How does that sound? Is anyone interested in that sort of thing, making more money as a documentary photographer and becoming a better photographer, documentary photographer to begin with? Okay, so I'm going to share a little bit about what's inside the school. So here's how we go from feeling lost and underpaid and unseen in our photography markets to shining like diamonds, my friends. So in Storyteller School, we're going to talk a lot about technique. I mentioned before, I love to geek out on technique. So we're going to talk about the art of truly seeing. And these are things like patience and anticipation and composition, which I mentioned a little bit today. We're going to connect with how you see the world. We're going to really dig into who you are and what perspective you bring to the world. Today we talked about values. There are several more layers underneath that we work into your brand. We go from just another moment to a moment that actually matters, how to edit and sequence your work for ultimate impact. And we go through the technical mastery of emotional connection in your photos and in your business. And there's a big, strong tie between the emotions that you experience when you're shooting and when you're representing that in your work, and how you run your business. And then we tie all that into the business of storytelling. So we're going to talk marketing for premium pricing. We're going to talk portfolio and website mastery for clients who absolutely love you, and how to talk so that your clients will listen. So upselling and pricing your collections and really getting comfortable talking about money. We have to be able to talk about money if we're going to help our clients to really understand the value that we're going to provide for them. Okay, so I used to really love this quote by Mark Twain: "The secret to getting ahead is getting started." But I've come to learn that the secret to getting started is asking for help. And you do not have to do this alone. And in fact, I wouldn't recommend that you do it alone. I don't understand how people can truly find their voice and their perspective without rapping back and forth with somebody who's in their corner and who can really see them from an objective point of view. And that's what we're going to do in Storyteller School. So enrollment is open and we're going to get started in mid-October, but I'm going to be kind of flexible about the date because I want to fill the seats. And then when those people are all in it, we'll pick a day that will be best kind of for everyone. But I would like it to be the kind of mid-October, maybe the 12th through the 16th, somewhere in there. I'm going to close enrollment on Sunday. And if you're not sure if this is right for you, if you want more information, if you need to ruminate it about a little bit, I 100% totally understand. And so I'm going to send you an email shortly that will give you the link either to jump into the cart right away and get one of those 5 spots, or you can book a discovery call with me this week and we can sit down for 15 minutes and talk about how it is that I can support you. If you sign up today, I'm going to give you a bonus portfolio critique. And the fun thing about that is that we'll spend an hour or so together exploring your favorite images. And I will help you to really refine your voice so that the images that you share are consistent and impactful even before we get going into the school. Or you can choose to do that at the end of the 3 months, because the 3 months will set you up for what you need. And then sometimes we need a little bit of extra support after, right? You can make all these changes. Sometimes it feels like you're drinking from a fire hose. You might need a little bit more time. And so if you sign up today, you can either do that call now or like shortly before we start, or you can do it at the end. We'll take a break through Christmas. And I want it to be just a really, really supportive group environment where we are helping each other to truly see and to really improve as photographers and as business people. All right. Now I kind of flew through this and I didn't leave you any space for questions. And if you would like to ask any questions, I am more than happy to ask you or answer anything that is coming up for you. What do you think? You can all unmute if you want, and you can ask whatever you'd like. But I do hope you got some value out of today, and I really sincerely appreciate you being here. Any questions? All right. Well, I'm gonna let you go.